Hi, Dr. Misak here. Today I want to teach you about the bioelectric chemistry nature of our bodies and the Ream's biological theory of ionization, also known as RBTI. Dr. Carrie Reams was an Einstein-level genius.
We're gonna kind of start. We love doing health by the numbers, and we're gonna teach these numbers. We're gonna if you go back and look at some of my old shows, I mean, I've taught all of this stuff, and I want to start putting it into a practical sense where I give you information, and people can start putting their numbers up on the chat at some point. But today we're going to do something a little different with Annie. Annie, you want to say hello since you're out there controlling everything? So if you guys are out there, give a thumbs up. I mean, those type of things happen and help if you turn around and if you share and let it go live. I did put it out there on Facebook this morning. We for all reasons thought that we would be going live on time today, and it's weird, people. We can't explain the little technical difficulties we're having with streaming and getting our video up. And finally, it decided to work. And so we are going to take advantage of this, give you something that you just will hopefully completely enjoy. Annie is our guinea pig today. We are going to stick her finger and take her blood. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to show you a little bit about live blood. There's some things that we do, when you're looking at from an analytical perspective. I mean, hopefully most of you have gone to my channel, have seen some of the whiteboard ads that are there. The one, analysis versus diagnosis, kind of gives an idea of, we want to know analytically what's happening with people and not just, a diagnosis, which is a guess. We don't want to guess. We want to have some concrete information in association with cause and effect. And that's, and then we take that information and move forward. So I've got some shows planned to bring in, because in naturopathic medicine, there's a basic tenet of first do no harm. The vis medicatrix naturae, the healing power of nature. But one of my favorite is, to identify the cause. If we can figure out why you are having the symptoms that you're having, then we should be able to remove the why, and your body just naturally restores and heals. And that's the basic tenet of naturopathic medicine. That is, if you look up naturopathic medicine, if you go to any naturopath's website, you will find that those 7 principles of natural medicine are there. For those of you who don't know me, hopefully you, I'm assuming the people who are out there, I don't know if we have any people watching right now. I got Annie's on that right now. Um, okay, so you 6, thank you, thumbs up please. But it grows, people. We you know, when these share, we end up getting up to a few hundred. Hopefully we're going to get up to the thousands, and we're going to teach something that just isn't taught. I want to put things in perspective. I want you to be I want you to think like a clinician, even though you're not a clinician, and I want to make it simple. You know, disease is simple. It's either associated with deficiency or excess, and so you got to figure out which one it comes to. And you know, the guy that we kind of fall back to, Dr. Kerry Reams, says it all comes back to deficiency, because if you have some type of toxic excess that your body can't process, the reason it can't process it is because there's a deficiency of something needed in order for the body to energetically remove that. So the goal is to teach you how to gain more energy from your food than what you consume. We're going to introduce, you know, over time, we'll do some cooking ideas. We're going to give you, we're going to be working on another retreat. Those of you who are out there, I'm assuming some of you may have gone to a retreat, because those are the ones who typically are getting on my shows. Chris just kind of completed, kind of caught up on that cookbook aspects of what's been made at the retreats, and keep putting that together. So eventually we're going to have a cookbook that's coming out. It's exciting. It really is, but it's overwhelming as well. So, you know, working on that coalition, getting it up to date, and having everything available so that we can start sharing that information. We've got the website in development. We have it set up to where people are going to be able to join, but if they join, there's no available information for you to go to once you join. And so we're trying to upload things and get it all caught up. And it's just a great undertaking with very few people. And but thank you for those of you who are patiently waiting. And it's going to be exciting. I you know, I've got a vision, and I just see everything falling in line. It just goes slower than what I wish. You know, I wish that I could, you know, snap my fingers and everything would fall in place and we'd be ready to go. But today, I mean, we tried to do this a few weeks ago. I've got my my area set up back here to where I've got my computer's on a stack of books, and I'm going to bring Annie back here. We're going to go over a couple things. Annie can grab her numbers if you want to. We can at least discuss them. But the interesting thing is when we did her numbers a few weeks ago, it was a time of month where it pointed that it was a time of month. And that's kind of one of those things. They say, well, are you, you know, is this your cycle time? And so what it does is those numbers tell where we're drawing energy from. And so, but we want to make sure that we kind of just encompass a whole naturopathic approach for you. I want you to be introduced to that machine over there, and you know, where we look at electrodermal testing and testing people for foods and chemical sensitivity. We want to introduce you to live blood today. We always want to talk about the numbers, particularly if people are putting something out there. And so what I'll do is I'm going to have Annie come back here. We'll prick her finger and just show you how we kind of do that. We'll put it up on the screen. Annie can run back and be able to check the chat if there's questions and those type of things. But it's just a lot of information to share, and we want to make sure that you know, we do it in a kind of an approach that makes sense to you and why we do it. I think live blood is one of the most fascinating things. You get to see you know, the life of the body. It's just totally incredible. I have been introduced to some other aspects and that we want to bring into the picture, because in naturopathic medicine and that aspect of identifying the cause, there have been some people that went ahead of me, you know, when I was in school and taught, hey, it's all about detox. And that was the original kind of thing that moved me, was detoxification, when I started naturopathic medicine. And so in my clinic, I have an infrared sauna, I have ionic foot baths, I have colon hydrotherapy, I have biomats, I have a hyperbaric chamber, you know, all of these things for supportive detox. And so, but then what are we detoxing? That's the question. So I've started getting into some testing that allows us to identify what we're dealing with. and sometimes hones in a little bit on what's needed in order to deal and clear that thing out. So I'm going to get some gloves. I'm going to turn this screen a little bit. We have Annie right here. Let me grab a pair of gloves. And we're going to show you how this is done. Yep.
From the show.
Oh, good, good. So she's got some numbers that we've had from before. Don't cover that up. That's where your slides are. Okay. And there we go. So what we do first, we're going to get ready for the exam.
You're terrible.
How many people have gone to the medical doctor, particularly, your gynecologist or your proctologist or your urologist, and they put on the gloves? What goes through our minds? It's always that picture in whatchamacallit. So just to let you people know, we use clean needles. So I'm going to turn around and take this cap off. And so we're going to have a brand new needle here to prick Annie's finger. We are going to clean her finger with alcohol. So please provide me with a finger here. Okay, we're going to let that dry off a little bit. And then we have slides. So we collect 2 slides when we do live blood, where the first slide is the live blood slide, and the second slide is what we call dry layers, or it used to be called HLB analysis. It's also called, some people call it the pathology determination test. Some people call it coagulation morphology test. How does the blood coagulate, and what's the changes, the patterns that dry inside there. It's really cool stuff, people. So let's get started here. I'm going to show you how, Annie, we're going to go and cock the gun, and we are going to shoot your finger, lady. Pop. And then we are going to get a little bit of blood out of here. And as that blood comes up, a little lower here. Here we go. I'm going to put it on a slide. 1 drop, see? I'm going to put that on the slide here. And then, while that's going there, I'm going to wipe this off. And then we're going to get another drop. And we're going to leave this drop for about 30 to 45 seconds for our dry blood layer. It looks like she's a little clumpy today, but I'll put it up here on a microscope. And
a little clumpy.
There we go. Actually, it looks pretty darn decent good. All right, so I'm going to show you guys the blood. Well, now I'll do this first. Let me get the other layer. So the other layers, you have about 30 seconds. You take a slide, and we just do 8 drops of blood. Off the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you got 8 layers of blood on 1 slide, which is what we do. And then I always lay it east to west, so this is north in our place. This is south, so hitchhiking today. So let's go. And so I'm going to pull this up. And so here's Annie's blood, and she's going to run back to the back to make sure you guys can kind of see. Let's find where it's kind of moving around, and there we go. So you can see when you put a drop of blood up, there is movement. And so this is what's different from live blood versus kill blood, like what they do in medical offices. I'm going to slide this table back a little bit. So just hold still for some motion, just so I can stand over here and hopefully you can see me while I'm doing this. So can you see that, Annie? Can you see? Good. So what we're looking at is a bunch of red blood cells. However, a little bit about it. Annie, you want to tell a little bit about the main thing that's going on with you? Not at all. She's like, no. Then she's pinpointing, like, don't put me on the spot. So Annie has a lot of inflammation, okay? And so it shows. So as you look at the blood, red blood cells are these little bluish-looking things. Big white blood cells are right here. There's a white blood cell right here. This is a neutrophil. You have another neutrophil right here. But all of these big smudgy things that are in between, those are all platelets. And platelets are a sign of inflammation. So when you see lots and lots of platelets, there's 2 things you think about: inflammation and leaky gut. So you tend to see that kind of happen in here. I like to always find somewhere in the blood where it's flowing and moving. There's a nice little, this is what cholesterol crystals look like. You can see a little bit of cholesterol because as the blood gets thick, which is not thick, it's kind of separated out, which is not a bad thing. But what we're trying to do is you want to compare shape and size in the blood. And so as we do this, you can turn around and say, okay, white blood cells are about 15 to 18 microns right there, and red blood cells are about 6 to 9 microns. So 2 of these should fit inside there, which shows, yes, it, for the most part, can. So you look at the size of the cells. A large cell is called a macrocyte. A small cell is called a microcyte. And macrocytes are associated with B12 and folic acid deficiency mostly. Microcytes are the small ones, are associated with iron deficiency, but also can be from environmental toxicity. We see it in heavy metal toxicity and things of the like. So when you're seeing that her cells, 2 of these will mostly fit in there, and there's not a lot of variation in size. So if you see, like, it's hard to tell from where you are, but that cell right there is a little smaller than that cell, or this one. You can see those are just a little bit differentiated in size, particularly those 2 right there. So I can zoom in. Whoa, that's a good idea. So we can zoom in here so you can see these cells. And so when you see variations in size, like this cell is bigger than this cell here, you know, or even the one that's squished inside there, that's called anisocytosis. And anisocytosis, aniso is unequal, cyto is cell. Anisocytosis is associated with many, many things, from a B12 folic acid deficiency, but mostly you'll see it in anemic states. You'll see it in hypothyroid states. You'll see it in areas where you'll see malnutrition, malabsorption, you know, and inflammatory components, you know. So when we're looking there from a standpoint, there's a slight degree of anisocytosis, not bad. But what I see as I zoom out and look at this is Annie's got platelets everywhere, everywhere. The other thing you look for is these little itty bitty dancing particles. Like, oh my God, what are those, right? I've got dancing stuff in my blood. And many people like, what are those? And they're plasma particles, which are mostly called chylomicrons. And chylomicrons are mostly composed of triglyceride, cholesterol, protein, fat, they're mostly triglycerides. So as we're doing this, you look at those chylomicrons to know if there's a healthy breakdown or absorption of fat in people. So certain people have them everywhere. And when those little dots are everywhere, most of the dots you see with Annie are cholesterol or platelets. But when you see those chylomicrons everywhere, it could be a sign of liver stress, liver issues. The liver is, you know, just can't handle breaking down the fats, and you see some type of compromised liver, like alcoholics. You'll see them everywhere. And then when you don't see them at all, it's a sign of poor bile quality, and you'll see where people are actually unable to break down the fat. They're malabsorption. And with those, you'll see other cell structures called acanthocytes that look like protrusions coming off the cells, and in various cell structures that are associated with, hey, you're not digesting your fats. This right here is called a protoplast. And protoplasts are like, hey, we don't know why those appear, but we tend to see them in people who are inflamed. Some people have suggested they're associated with mold. Other people have suggested just a chemistry imbalance with pH being out. There's various aspects of what people have suggested in live blood. I'm looking here to see what else we can see that jumps out that just says, hey, the main thing with Annie here is you see a lot of platelet activity. And let me see here. Lymphocytes right in here. You can see a little bit of the membranes on the lymphocytes. That's a little oxidation. Anytime you see a cell that is not round, if you see like, where can I show you a good one? Like in here, you see damage, and as you zoom in, you know, if you see that they're not round and they have these weird shapes, that's from oxidation. You know, so that's where cells start breaking down, and that's why we take antioxidants, because of basic cellular destruction is oxidative stress, you know. And so when you see bites out of the cells, some people suggest that could be markers when it looks like a Pac-Man took a bite out of it. Some people have suggested that could be a marker for viral issues. And so same when I showed you that lymphocyte a minute ago, and that lymphocyte had a little bit of a white ring around the edge, that can also be a low oxygen state, but can also be a viral marker. You see the cells are moving. They should be moving. A healthy blood is they're all separated and just kind of drifting along. You see the white blood cells should be active. Here's a crystal right here. Crystals are associated with poor protein digestion. They're also associated with acid-base imbalances. And so last time we ran Annie's numbers, she was running a pH of about 5.5, which is quite acidic when you're looking at it. We also look at the number of white blood cells. For every 700 red blood cells, we should see 2 or 3 white blood cells on the screen. And so, which we're seeing probably, it looks okay in regards to the number of white blood cells. It's just her white blood cells have all this activity on the outside that they're atypically shaped, particularly, and when you see atypical, it's like going on, you know, if they're busted apart, you see allergies or toxicity. If I see mold in people, I see that the lymphocytes like this have they're really weird shaped, and they have all this structure in them, and you see an increased number of monocytes. So there's a lymphocyte here, a lymphocyte up here. You can see an abnormal membrane on this lymphocyte. Here's an interesting thing right here where people say, what is that, Annie? And so let me see if I can get over here and zoom in, put that in the middle of the screen, and you see what I'm seeing. So when you're looking at these plasma particles or these chylomicrons, where did it go? You see it? Oh, I don't see it. I was trying to zoom in so you can see. So like I said, these chylomicrons are just little dancing particles, but that's all they should be, is dancing particles. They shouldn't be round circles. They shouldn't be rod shaped. We can't legally sit here. Look at this little guy right there. He's trying to swim in. Looks like a big, long rod shape. What is that? Well, we can't say it's a microbe. That'd be illegal because that's diagnostic of sepsis. And we wouldn't want to do that. But there's 2 theories on microorganisms. One is that they're already living inside of us, called pleomorphism. Another is the germ theory that says if you got bugs in you, you're going to get sick because of the bug. But, you know, pleomorphism just says, hey, there's a little bit of an immune compromise. And it'd be great if we had an active white blood cell. Like here, we see these lymphocytes zoomed in. You can see the atypical nature of their outer shell. So that's a sign of stress. There's a sign, again, potential viral activity. Viruses you cannot see on the scope, but microbes, bacterial, you can. Fungal components, you can. So you can shift this from a dark field microscopy, and we can shift it over to what we call phase contrast. And so I do not know what's happening here. Let me get this. Somehow I just bumped my microscope head, and I just knocked off the back side of it. See, it's tilted. What did I do? Here we go. So when you flip over on the phase contrast, we got a little bit of, you could see in phase, it's a different, the light's coming around this, across the cell instead of through it or around it. And so you see little white spots like right there. And those are mostly considered to be either disaccharides is what most people believe. And they're associated with the sign of fermentation, that there's like, hey, you're fermenting. You have some type of possible yeast going on inside there. And so, and then these little dots, they're little black lines is what you see in phase contrast. And when you're in dark field, it looks like white lines. And you'll see the little white lines, but they're really faint. But those white lines are associated, they're called fibrin spindles. And fibrin spindles are a sign of liver stress. Now, there's usually somewhere on the slide where we're all clumped together. You know, it's called the zone of agglutination. And so this is what agglutination looks like. And so when you eat too much salt, particularly sea salt, this is what you get. And these red blood cells, when they have to go through your capillary beds, they go one cell at a time in an alignment. So if you have a tendency for agglutination, you don't get oxygenation well. You don't get your red blood cell capacity to carry oxygen is just decreased. And so therefore you get sore, tired, and achy. Also, when you see this throughout somebody's slide, it's usually a sign that they are not digesting because of the energy between the cells called the zeta potential, Z-E-T-A. And the zeta potential is associated with the electricity. Everything's electric. That's between the cells. And if it diminishes, the cells will clump together. So there was a guy named T.C. McDaniels who was all about zeta potential and how if we increase the separation of these cells by drinking distilled water, amazingly enough, that you tend to get better oxygenation, and he saw decreased cardiovascular issues. And that's also what we saw with Dr. Kerry Reams. He said that heart attacks and things like that could be a thing of the past, that people would just drink pure water. So that's going to the edge of the slide. And when you get here, you can usually see more of those fibered spindles and things where the blood kind of agglutinates. But the main thing is overall, you got a picture here. Annie's got some inflammation, which she will tell about at some point. A lot of inflammation with these. And then the question is there a little bit of a leaky gut aspect? Whenever the cells are clumping, whenever the cells are not flowing, there's a dehydration aspect to it as well. So we just need to have her drink some water. Here's an interesting cell right here. And it looks better if you put it on phase, because it looks like it has little white spots on it. And I don't know if you guys could see that. I might be able to zoom in. And you see this cell right here. It looks really weird and oblong shaped. And if I change contrast, you can see it's got white spots on it. See that? So white spots, there's two trains of thought with that. In America, they teach that those are mycoplasma formed, stealth infection. In Europe, they teach that it's oxidized hemoglobin. Nobody has truly discovered and said what it is. There's a little bit more cholesterol here. It's what it looks like in phase versus looking at it in dark field. I personally prefer dark field. I just get used to looking at it better. But that's kind of a basis of looking at live blood. There's more that I could turn around and talk about this. Elliptical shapes associated with B12 folic acid issues, associated with hormonal imbalances. There's different things that are going on. So let's see. Finally, yes. So I'm looking at your guys' chat. Good morning. Interesting dark field. Can you evaluate a differential sometime? Doing a differential, what that means is that you take a field, okay, and you look on here, and when you put the cells at about right here, at this size on the microscope where I'm zooming in using the camera, if you dissect this screen in half and then in thirds, so you get 6 blocks, you roughly should see about 700 cells, 600 to 800 red blood cells per field. And for every one of those fields, we should see 2 or 3 white blood cells, which right here, there's one right here, there's one right there. You have a couple of neutrophils. So when you're looking at a neutrophil, for example, and there's flip down a little bit, there's a neutrophil. You see the activity. It's moving around. It's nice and active. However, it's got abnormal membrane on the outside. And look at this one. If you count the little blue circles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, little dark blue circles are called centromeres. If you get 5 or more, that's associated with a B12 folic acid deficiency. So the elliptical shapes, the variations in size, the hypersegmented neutrophils. When you see hypersegmentation, it's been a B12 folic acid for a while. So although there are, for the most part, there's some equal comparisons of her cells, there's some good sizes in there, there's still signs that she still needs B12 and folate, which I'm pretty sure we have her on. The main thing with Annie here today is this is a dehydration picture. This is a picture of inflammation. And when you hear Annie's story and your heart goes out to hear the pain that this lady's been in, you'll see that this is par for the course of why we see inflammation. So now we've had, let's look at the dry layers. So when you go to dry layers, there are these doctors back in the where did the slide go? Right here. There were these doctors back in the 1920s, and I don't remember their names. I really should. It's HLB. I know one of them was a French name. The L guy, the B guy was Bradford, because he tried to do the Bradford. He tried to go and create what was called the Bradford something. I don't remember. But he tried to go and run away with the information and say, hey, he wanted to start something that was completely unique and interesting. But what happened was our medical counterparts turned around and dismissed what they had defined. So when you're looking at what's called HLB analysis or dry blood, you try to turn around and we're looking at 1 drop of blood and we do 8 layers of it. And so you can see the outside. When you see a diffuse nature on the outside, it's a sign of poor vitamin C utilization. But what we're looking at is this nice interconnected fibrin pattern. And where it's not interconnected, you can see the broken interconnectedness. And these white spots are called polymerized protein puddles. This is signs of inflammation. So when you take a step back and you look, Annie has a sign of inflammation on all. We look at 8 layers. Like you take the center and you go out 8 concentric circles, and you can see that there's polymerized protein puddles in every layer, particularly out here in this outer layer. You can turn around and you see that there's more white. And so when you put the blood down on a slide, we always lay it east to west, and in this office, so North Pole, South Pole, everything in nature is polar. And so what happens is that blood dries, the heavier things shift out towards the outside. And so we can see it'll get darker on the outside, which is the sign of heavy metal toxicity. You'll see the diffuse natures on the outside, which is associated with a little bit of vitamin C utilization. This poor, and the more of the diffuse nature on the outside, the more layers you see that through. You see it with increased stress, bottom line. Right here, when you see little like straight lines, kind of curvy kind of things, that's a sign of a whiplash injury in dry blood. And so this one, when I see this, I'd say, hey, do you have neck pain? Annie, do you have neck pain?
Do I have neck pain?
And so also in dry blood layers are these black pits. When you see black pits, they always associate that with parasites, or can be associated with B12 folic acid deficiency. Hey, we had some markers of that in the dry layers. We also do live blood and look for these, or the electrodermal testing, which gives you some of that idea. But black pits is associated, if you see those and you don't have signs of fatty acid issues with those chylomicrons, acanthocytes, those type of things, you tend to think parasites. And where she had some atypical kind of designed white blood cells, the membranes are kind of wacky, that's another marker for parasites and those type of things. So here's black pits. The more pinholes you see in the center is associated with adrenal stress. So, when you see them getting at a particular size, about this size and coming up, you see adrenal stress. You also see internal organ stress based upon where these holes appear. So, so when I'm looking here, this is just showing mostly some lymphatic congestion, and the poor interconnectedness goes back to hormonal aspects. So where we were talking about those elliptical shapes in the blood, you tend to see hormonal issues with elliptical shapes and also with poor interconnectedness. But overall, when you see pinholes through every layer, you tend to see some type of allergy per se. So go to the next layer. Oh my God, straight lines. So when you see straight lines, that's a sign of mid to low back pain. Annie, do you have mid to low back pain?
Seriously, that's cool.
So
absolutely.
So mid to low back pain. And then when you see the erased out portions like this right here, you ask about pancreatic stress. So I'd want to look at her numbers and look at the whether you're a carb addict or not, whether you go after that. Oh, you're smiling lately.
Figured out how to make bread.
Okay. So, but again, so this is a sign of a little bit of pancreatic stress. Again, the inflammation. You see the pinholes, the polymerized protein puddles. You see those through all the layers. A few black pits. Same kind of pattern. You go out to the outskirts, and that's the lymphatic patterns. But you also see it's getting a little dark on the outside. So when you see the outer rings getting darker, it's a sign of poor detoxification. And anybody that I come here in Pittsburgh and does the test, it's amazing how dark it is. I had a lady from Maine who I think she was from Patriot Soapbox from one of my earlier shows just this past week. And when we went through her layers, there was no darkness. And she lives where? In Maine on a farm. So when you see that, there's not this residual, hey, my blood trying to deal with these environmental toxins on a regular basis. So we'll go through, this looks like a concussion history right there. So when you see protrusions on the outside, you look for head injuries and neck injuries. And so, Annie, have you had a head or neck injury?
Yes.
Yes, she has. Many of them. So it's interesting, but you got to realize dry blood is like reading tea leaves according to modern medicine. This is all hocus pocus crap. It's like there's nothing that your blood shows by looking at it dry, but yet you could turn around and say, how old are you if you want to share that?
34.
34, you divide it by 8, so you say 4. So I'd say about 8 years ago, what happened?
Oh, yeah. I jumped out of a tree into water.
Jumped out of a tree in the water
And
8 years ago and
hit
hit her
weird.
head.
And I hit weird.
And
yeah.
so, wow, do. How does this happen, people? Your blood is a life. It's alive, people. It's telling a story. And so people have tried to say, how is this? Is this oxidation? What if I mix good blood with bad blood? What if I load you up with antioxidants? And what they came down to decide, at least the theory that I hear, is that everything is energy. And everything that happens leaves an energy signature. And so if you have your blood carrying all your various energies and frequencies, which Reem says, hey, if you know the frequency, you know the diet, and we're looking at those numbers to understand frequency. So if a head injury causes a particular frequency, when the blood dries, wouldn't that frequency cause a particular pattern? That's what I think. So it's just interesting. I don't put the same credit to dry blood as I do live blood when I'm looking at it, but it's really interesting to come on. As you go to the next slide, wow, here is this is interesting, Annie. So as you go back and you look, this pinholes in the center, this is directly associated with adrenal stress. And I can tell you, Annie probably has her fair share of stress with the pain that she goes through on a daily basis. But again, here's that line, that whiplash kind of injury kind of line, but where it is in the level of here, you tend to see at the outskirts and the top, you tend to see neck injuries. When you get to the middle or in here, you see mid back. This is a hip injury. Annie, have you had any hip injuries?
Oh, yes.
Annie's got pins holding her hips together, people.
Tore my labrum,
She
too.
tore her labrum. I mean, just massive. So this is a sign of a hip injury. Worse probably on the left side. I don't know if it is. Is the left side worse?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you turn around and you see, but hip injury, again, a little bit of darkness, not detoxing. Again, adrenal stress. Again, black pits. Question about parasites. Got to be there. Got to keep that in mind. Next level. Oh, wow, there's that big old thing on the outside saying, hey, you've had a neck injury at some point. Again, we see darkening, and he's not detoxifying. We see darkened center. There's a digestive issue. The digestion showing a little bit of stress. The larger these holes become are associated with organ stress. In this area is usually the lung, might be a little bit of lung stress. When you see them right here, you usually see breast issues. Here, you usually see kidney issues. So again, these little white fine lines coming out, again, point towards the lymphatic system being a little congested. You can see the darkening on the outside, kind of this erased out portion right here. It can be associated with a little bit of a thyroid stress. Next layer, same kind of pattern. Hey, Annie, you got mid and low back pain? So darkening on the outside. You're not detoxifying as well. There's a little bit of stress in the digestive tract. Again, lung stress right here. Just as pelvic stress when you see this here. Food sensitivities when you see the pinholes. As the lines go out, again, lymphatic stress. Same kind of pattern. Just as we go through successive things, we see this. This looks like you had an injury to your right ankle or foot or something at some point, but a long time ago.
When I was playing basketball in high school, softball in college, yes.
Basketball in high school, softball in college. People, this is not scripted. You saw me take the blood, okay? I did not. You saw me take it. I put it on here. This is directly from it. And this is just, it tells a story. It's a beautiful thing. Adrenal stress, again, poor detoxification. Again, this is a sign of an injury to something on the lower part of the body, possible food sensitivities, basic same molecule. And then the end, it looks like even younger. Did you grow up in Pittsburgh? Okay. I mean, it's too dark. It's a sign of poor detoxification, those type of things. So that's kind of dry blood, live blood as a generalized picture. So we hope to keep bringing some things to you. The other thing is we did Andy's numbers like a couple of weeks ago. I don't know how far we are. We're 11 o'clock, half hour in. So we grab that board right behind you. Or that one. Yeah. The board. Yeah. So when we're looking here and there's a screen. Oh, where'd my little eraser go? It was sitting on this table. Interesting. I don't have my eraser. I'll just use this. All right. So I've always tried to go back and, go things. from a standpoint of a perfect equation. And I hope this is reading correctly. You know, as we look here, we have the perfect equation, 1.5, 6.4 over 6.4, 6.5 C, 0.04 M, 3 over 3 in common sense. That's perfect energy efficiency in the human body, is when you see that. And so when Annie came, and we're gonna go over this from the visit from on 11/22. So she had 3.3, 5.40 over 6.74, 31.6 C, 4M plus, and 8 over 8. And this was on 11/22, 19, and Annie was, you know, so as we go through and look at this, you know, you go from perfect and you say, where is it away from perfect? We've taught to look at the ranges. Which number is the furthest away from range A? Range A would be perfect, or we have a scale, roughly 1.5 to 2, 6.3 to 6.6, 6.5 to 10, for, you know, from a 4M, and then 10 over 12 over 5 over 7 is kind of like the healing range. So when you go and you look at her range, you see what's out the furthest are both this conductivity, which is in probably range C, but we have this 5.4 pH, which puts her in range D. And so it's like, oh, this is a range D person. But it tells so much more. So you're looking here, sugars, salts are a little up. It's a 1 to 10 ratio. What was she eating? Sea salt. You know, were you eating sea salt around your cycle?
Once, yeah.
Yep. So sea salt. And then you also look and see that. So when you see that, it's a dehydration. You see this, you're going to see that agglutination. You're going to see that platelet activity, you know. But this 5.4 over 6.74 tells the picture here, and this 8 over 8. So we always, you know, what Ream showed is that the pHs can kind of steer you where in the body things are happening. So 6.4 is the belly button, you know. And so you drop down 5.4, we're looking at her pelvis. 6.7, we're looking around the breast. So you got something going to the pelvis and the breast, and left over right, this is pointing right to the center, 8 over 8. So what is that saying? This is when she was on her cycle. So we didn't run our numbers today because we were pulling our hair out trying to figure out how to get the show up and everything. But this is what we can learn by looking at the numbers. And you can say, hey, so when she has her menstrual cycle, hey, you need to stay away from the salt. You need to drink your water. You need to take some extra vitamin D and maybe a little Cal-2, and eat some greens, you know. And so that would be kind of a basic thing that we would talk about. Maybe, like, did I say vitamin D? Yeah, and some vitamin D. And then what you do is it'll help as you move the energy by using supplementation or diet. I mean, you can also do foods. You can go out in the sun by all means to get that vitamin D. You can look at the prominent calcium food list and focus in on foods that raise the pH. There's various ways to do this. Diet is ideal, but most people want to know, what do I take? It's just that kind of world out there. So I don't know what else to do other than, you know, say, hey, that's an introduction to some of the things that we want to do. Let's see if there's any chat going out there that we have any questions or anything. We have Lori. Good morning. Thank you for bringing in this natural healing. God bless you too, Lori. Thank you. Profit Bear. I like that. I know this is off topic, but can that machine pick up orgone energy? I'm a firm believer in Wilhelm Reich and most of his research. I don't know which machine you're asking about, if you're asking about electrodermal EAV equipment or if you're asking about radionics equipment. There's a machine called the SE5. If you look up SE-5.com, you'll learn about the SE5. Something else that I do have, but I don't use it on clients because that's illegal. And but you can pick up orgone energy, and it is measurable. It's kind of ironic that you say that Dr. Misak would have orgone pyramids, and I have a homemade piece of orgonite right over there that I made. I love orgonite. I have a tower in my garden. It actually moves the clouds, people, but I don't move the clouds. I don't know if that's illegal or not. You know, I have had, when I first did it, I had some weird helicopters flying over my place. Let's see. Shared on Discord. Merry Christmas. Wim Hof and his breathing technique and cold water treatment are epic. Let's throw Annie in a pot of ice water and teach her how to put it in cryotherapy. There are definitely some benefits for someone in the inflammation aspect. When you're looking at Wim Hof, there's a lot of brain aspects with that too. You have to turn around and realize that meditative state, when I was in naturopathic medical school and I was introduced to Qigong and Oriental medicine. They talked about the aspects of these people who could be, at the base of, on Mount Everest and take their shirts off and still be fine because they've learned how to control the energy in their body, basically with their mind and breathing techniques. Powerful stuff. I don't turn around and have you and go over that in my office evaluations. There's too much information in a short period of time. Good stuff to bring here. Thank you. And Merry Christmas to all. Thank you. Those of you who are there, again, I ask you, these shows, we hope to bring them out. I hope that you can turn around. Wow, I get to see it live. Good. Wow, look at that. I can see myself. It's working. So I hope that a few things, people, thumbs up. That helps us. It gets it out there. Please share these videos. We're going to start recording and just walking through some stuff with Annie, showing you how this is done and kind of the things that we want to introduce to the air. I'm still going to go back and I'm still going to teach, every week is the plan. We're doing 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So that way you people on the West Coast can actually get out of bed and watch it. If you're not getting out of bed and if I don't see some chat that says I'm from the West Coast, I'm going to go back to 9 o'clock because it's easier for me in my day. And so if you guys are on West Coast, you better be making some chat and saying, hey, we're watching out here. So I know you're getting out of bed for it. Otherwise, anything else? I'm about ready. Yeah, she's going to run back to the back and we can see if there's anything else that Annie wants to do before we sign off for the day. I thank you. Those of you who aren't aware, vitalometry. Vitalometry is, one of the things that I created that kind of helps to support this channel, helps support us. If you use the code DOCMISAK at checkout, you get 15% off. However, right now there's a special. If you log on to the website, you'll see we have our 12 days of Christmas, which is 25% off, people. 25% off plus free shipping if you order at least $150. So we do have people taking advantage of that. But again, that's just one of the things that supports the mission. We are moving towards, again, that coalition. I've recorded for the next whiteboard ad, and we're going to do have the coalition trying to get that website to go live so people can turn around and join, and we can provide you information on the internet. And again, vitalometry directly supports that. So there's a lot going on. Otherwise, during this Christmas season, I can only just say, remember Christ in Christmas, people. It's all about love, and I hope we can all find that together. And I don't know what else to say except, enjoy the season. I'll see you guys next Saturday. And if we start doing Wednesdays, we might pop in and do a kind of a teaser of what we're going to do on Saturdays and do a short blip on Wednesdays. If we do that, we'll start making it at the same time. It would probably be at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So in that way, you can just collect the 15 minutes. And what we want to do with those shows is give a quick little blurb of, hey, here's something about the numbers, and here's something that you can be aware of as you're learning this stuff. So again, God bless you all. Have a Merry Christmas. I'll be able to say that again next week beforehand. But until next week, just take care and may God bless you. Thank you.